What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and we just had maybe the slimiest, sludgiest slate of the NFL season. We had 6 teams on bye. We had everybody and their brother injured, hurt, on the COVID list. We had a Sunday night game that was just a slop of a game. We had rain, mud, sleet, hail, even though we didn't actually have those things. Just an absolute messy game. Then the day slate was just kind of awful outside of, I guess, the Bengals-Ravens game, which even then, Lamar Jackson got pulled in like the fourth quarter. We didn't get to see him in a negative game script. Just a grimy week of football, which brings us to a place where we thrive in that kind of environment, the basement. A place where fantasy wins become fantasy championships, where boys become men. And with that being said, we're going to have, a better week this week. The Thursday night game is a beautiful palate cleanser. We have Thursday night Cardinals versus Packers, which is going to be an amazing game. I wish that they could have, I don't mind that on a Thursday night, but I wish that, we could have some better games on, Sunday nights, Monday nights. Tonight we have an awful game, which is the Saints versus the Geno Smith-led Seahawks. Not even really excited about it. But with that being said, we have the Week 8 fantasy football week ahead of us. We have to get into our waiver wire ads for Week 8. We're going to go over our top 5 running backs, our top 5 pass catchers. Maybe I'll sneak in a QB here and there, all under 50% owned on ESPN. I know I did a lot of rambling there, but without further ado, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a like. Helps out the channel a ton. We post daily fantasy football videos during the season. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical.
First up, let's talk about our top 5 must-add running backs for this week. And the guy that's going to be this week's priority ad, a guy that I would blow, 15% or more of your fab budget on. I don't even know how much more of your fab budget you probably have at this point. I'm in 12 managed redraft leagues. I think I probably have under 50% fab in maybe 9 out of 12 of them. Now, I also will say something that I struggle with. So let's say I say like 25% of the fab, right? Well, at this point, if you have, 14% of your fab left, are you interpreting that as 25% of my 14% is now getting put on that player, or, just 25% of the budget, and if you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. Now, I tend to, would that be the latter or the former? I don't know. The one I just said. I tend to think of it as, if it's a $100 budget and I say 25% fab bid, then it's $25 regardless of what you have in your balance at that said time. But Kenneth Gainwell, right? Back to the guy at hand. I don't know. I'm kind of going a little bit off topic today, but he's the premier pickup of the week. We had Miles Sanders suffer an ankle injury. He's going to be out 2 to 3 weeks. Now, this Eagles running back position hasn't been super valuable this year anyways, so it is a little bit, I wouldn't be as enthusiastic as others. Now, I will say I love Kenneth Gainwell. I think that he is a really good prospect. I believe he outtouched Antonio Gibson at Memphis, and I believe he outtouched Tony Pollard. I could be wrong about the Tony Pollard. Definitely outtouched Antonio Gibson. Was a really, really good running back for Memphis, and he saw 35 snaps, 5 carries, and 7 targets yesterday. So kind of had touches all over the place. Now, again, this is a team that has abandoned the run in the past when they get behind in games, and they're a bad team, so they get behind in a lot of games. The running back isn't going to be super valuable at this point. I would say that, Miles Sanders leaves and Kenny Gainwell would assume this full workload, but again, he only saw 35 of the snaps. So I wouldn't go too over your skis to get him, because a guy that we're going to mention again is also Boston Scott. Now, when we have one of these injuries to, the lead back like a Miles Sanders, you're going to want to roster both running backs just in case. Last year with Mike Davis, you roster Mike Davis and Reggie Bonifant. You hope one of them hits. Same thing here, but after the 12 snaps that Miles Sanders saw on Sunday, Boston Scott saw 23, Kenneth Gainwell saw 35. So almost like Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell. Now it's Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. And the weird part is, the thing that I don't understand, and I'm starting to think that Nick Sirianni doesn't really know what he's doing. It's just very weird to me. Boston Scott's like this 5'6" guy, just a primary pass catcher, a McKissick, Nyheim Hines type mold. And he saw 7 carries and 1 target. So he saw 6 less targets than Kenneth Gainwell, 2 more carries than Kenneth Gainwell on 12 less snaps. So he was almost being utilized as the between the tackles rusher, as a 5'6" guy that is primarily used as a pass catcher his entire career. Now, Kenneth Gainwell himself is also in that McKissick, Hines type role as a smaller back himself, but he at least rushed for like 1,000 yards in college. He looked really good as a rusher. He is a good rusher. So it's really weird the way that they're using them. Regardless, Scott is worth a stash. Gainwell is worth a priority bid. I'm not too excited about either, given the fact that Sirianni wants to really split their reps up, and on top of that, he wants to abandon the run game, just based on whatever the game script may be. Then our third running back on this list is sadly Brandon Bolden. It is no longer Ramondre Stevenson season. That's what I was talking about last week in the top 10 takeaways videos and the waiver wire videos. I was excited for my boy Ramondre Stevenson. He caught that wheel route. He got involved in the passing game, the goal line work. He got it all. He gets healthy scratched. And I think it might be because they have him in the doghouse, which is like, Bill Belichick, please get over yourself. Stop putting good players in the doghouse. It makes no sense. Now, did he beat my Jets by 50-plus points? Sure, so I don't really have an argument to make there. But Ramondre Stevenson missed a block on a pass blocking play. When he was in the backfield, it cost him a sack. That's what some people are saying it is because of. But regardless, he got healthy scratched. He's no longer really in the mix, and it seems like Brandon Bolden is slotting into that James White role. He is, the poor man's James White at this point. He has 4 or more targets in 4 of his last 5 games, so he's being used in this receiving down type role as, Mac Jones safety blanket. Now, that's not a super valuable role, but it is something in PPR leagues, and JJ Taylor did get his touches. I don't think that he's worth a pickup, though. I think 7 out of 10 of his touches yesterday were pretty much in garbage time when they were up 2 scores. I still do believe in the bottom of my heart, Ramondre Stevenson is at the very least ahead of the depth chart, ahead of JJ Taylor in the depth chart, but we'll see how that goes. Now, Brandon Bolden, worth an ad, but that's about it. Then we have our next running back, and that's going to be Alexander Mattison. He's available in like 57% of leagues, and I was surprised to see him still available in all of those ESPN leagues. Nothing has really happened this week to make him, this must add, like with, Kenneth Gainwell, Miles Sanders went down, but I'm just surprised to see him on so many waivers. Now, they did have a bye week, the Vikings. Dalvin Cook is probably as healthy as he's going to be this season, but I'm a believer that I don't think Mattison should ever be on waivers, given the fact that Dalvin Cook's injury history is crazy. His shoulder is hanging by a thread at this point. He is always missing games. He's already missed 2 games this season. Now, you can say, he's already missed his 2 games. He's probably going to play the rest of them and be just fine, but we never really know with Dalvin Cook. And then you also have the fact that Alexander Mattison, in the games where Dalvin Cook is gone, it is a lock that he is going to be the bell cow for that week. I swear to God, if you took Alexander Mattison, took him in the back into the locker room, slapped on Dalvin Cook's jersey, gave him the same exact face mask, gave him Cook on the back, number 33, and you trotted him out there and you didn't tell anybody a single word, he'd be the same guy as Dalvin Cook. It'd be almost the same thing. In the 2 games where he started in Dalvin Cook's place, he has scored 20 plus 0.5 PPR points in both of those games. So given that you are, holding somebody on your bench who is guaranteed a 15 point plus performance if Dalvin Cook goes down, he's always a guy that could have like a late inactive, Sunday morning, Dalvin Cook's not going to suit up. That's why I like Alexander Mattison as a nice guy to just have on my bench, on those hero RB, zero RB teams, because he's always going to give you a few weeks here and there. Our last running back is Rashaad Penny. He's available in like 90% of leagues. Now, this is pending the Monday night game. I'm recording this on Monday. Maybe Penny goes out there, goes crazy, but he is officially activated off of IR. He is ready to roll. Carson is not active. Alex Collins is coming into this game banged up. Maybe we could see Rashaad Penny rip off a big run and that would be just amazing for the soul. But I loved Rashaad Penny as a prospect. He runs well. He has good size. He's broken all of the records at San Diego State. He was a first-round pick in the NFL draft, drafted ahead of Nick Chubb. He was that guy. Now, say what you want about his talent at the very least. Let's say Alex Collins goes down. He's competing with Travis Homer and DJ Dallas for the main running back spot. So at that point, you just want to have a warm body on a team with Geno Smith at QB that really believes in running the football. So Rashaad Penny's a nice guy to have on the bottom of your bench in case if, he finally gets his number called, which then brings us to our top 5 pass catchers to pick up this week. And number 1, or these aren't really in order, but the number 1 guy I have on the list is Michael Gallup. He's available in half of leagues. People, got bored, dropped him into waivers. Michael Gallup is a real-life, really solid NFL wide receiver. In terms of talent, I'd have him up there with, a Will Fuller, a DJ Chark, even somebody like a Cortland Sutton. He is a very solid wide receiver in the NFL. He's designated to return from IR this week, which I think means the Cowboys have 21 days to activate him to the starting roster. So you might be waiting another week or 2 until he plays. But regardless, if he's healthy and he's starting in 3 wide receiver sets, he is a good flex play. And he is perfect because he is one of the few wide receivers in the NFL. There's very few wide receivers in the NFL that have handcuff-like qualities, right? So like Chase Claypool, Juju Smith goes down, Chase Claypool gets a huge upgrade to like top 24 wide receiver. Same thing happens with Gallup. If CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper, the guy who is often hurt, if Amari Cooper goes down, Gallup becomes a top 24 wide receiver in one of the league's highest scoring offenses. So he is a really solid pickup at wide receiver. Then we have Christian Kirk, another guy in a top scoring offense. And I'm shocked that Christian Kirk is so available. He's available he's owned in 31% of leagues. So he's available in 70% of leagues, which is crazy. He's coming off a week where he had 5 targets, 4 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. And he is now, it's wild to say this out loud, in PPR, he is the wide receiver 22 on the season. By definition, a top 24 wide receiver, and he's on waivers in 70% of leagues. I can't really do the math as to how that is even happening. I know that he hasn't been amazing, but he is essentially a guy that you can just throw in your flex on a week like last week. Buy him again, and you can get a nice 50 yards and a touchdown from him. Now, if you need a spot start, right? If you need a guy that can play right this week, the guy I would say that you should be picking up is Allen Lazard. He's not really a long-term play. He's a guy that is going to go off this week because I wasn't going to add him to this list until we got this news maybe 3 hours ago that Davante Adams is in COVID protocol, which means I believe, look, I'm not, scholarly all read up in these COVID guidelines, but it seems like if you're in the COVID protocol, I want to say they had a coach test positive, and if you're in the protocol, you were either really close to that guy or you tested positive. I believe that he tested positive. I want to say he's also vaccinated. I don't know what him being vaccinated really means in terms of is he more likely to kind of shrug it off and test negative, but he needs to test negative twice before the game on Thursday night. So because it's a Thursday night game with Davante Adams, that becomes extremely tough is what I would say. That means he needs to test negative Tuesday and test negative Wednesday. So that's not great. As of right now, I'm kind of operating under the assumption, as much as my Davante Adams teams are sad about it, I'm operating under the assumption that he is not playing. And Allen Lazard just had a solid game with Davante Adams where he played pretty well. He had 6 targets, 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. And he was already a pretty good play with Marquez Valdes-Scantling out. Now, if you have Davante Adams out, we're looking at Lazard in terms of being a short-term play with Marquez Valdes-Scantling out, Davante Adams out, in a game that could be a shootout against the Cardinals. Allen Lazard is a borderline top 30, top 24 play this week if Davante Adams doesn't play. So if you need a guy that you can, shove in the wide receiver spot for 1 week, Allen Lazard is that guy. Which then brings us to a man who lives on these lists every week, and that is Rashod Bateman. He's owned in only 19% of leagues. This is his 8th week in a row on here, and he looked good in his second game. He's now seen a 20.6% target share. Through 2 games, he's looked really promising. I like him in that same tier as a, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Rondale Moore, as these emerging rookie wide receivers, like a Kadarius Toney. I think that he is in that tier. Give him a couple more weeks to kind of emerge. Now, I will say Sammy Watkins, if he comes back, it could affect Rashod Bateman in some way, but we're hoping that we can grab him, put him on the bench, and we could see a breakout in these next 2 weeks. I want to say he had 80 yards, which is really good this week in a game script where they were kind of getting killed by the Bengals. I doubt that he even played towards the end of the game when they started pulling the starters out of the game, but I'm really excited about Rashod Bateman moving forward. I'm kind of surprised he isn't owned in more leagues. Our last pass catcher on this list is CJ Uzomah. He is, one of the weirder evaluations I've had to make this week. I've talked about this yesterday's video on the top 10 lessons learned. Uzomah is really tough to gauge because he is the tight end 11 on the season. Tight ends are extremely dry. Yesterday, he put up 3 catches for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns, but that's the problem. He saw 3 catches in an offense with Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. There's not a lot to go around, so you're really banking on massive efficiency spikes. Now, I guess you can kind of bank on that in an offense where a defense has to now respect a Jamar Chase and a T. Higgins, and it kind of frees up CJ Uzomah to play against, the 4th worst, pass coverage, and then you can kind of get broken plays here and there. You can't bank on it every week, but he is a guy, he maybe has one of the highest weekly ceilings at tight end because he gets these huge boom plays. It's just tough. And his last 4, he has 13 catches, 217 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He is this really nice boom bust type tight end. And if you need a tight end, if you're in a spot where your tight end's looking rough, maybe you had Dawson Knox and he's hurt now, Uzomah is nice. He's not some must-add, you need to get him on your team. He's just an amazing tight end rest of season, but he's a nice add. It's really all I can say about him. Then I'll throw in a quarterback here at the end for anybody who stuck around. We're going to talk about Tua. He is owned in only 43.1% of leagues. I don't think that he is some, world beater at quarterback, but we're now dealing with injuries. We're dealing with bye weeks. He's a decent fill-in in his healthy games where he's played the entirety of the games this season. So that's 3 games. He is now at a 21.36 points per game in those games. That's not bad at all. That's top 8, top 5 type numbers. I'm not saying he's going to sustain that, but in game scripts that look decent, Tua is a fine streaming quarterback rest of season. Now that's going to do it for today. I forgot to mention this in the beginning of the video, but I go through all of my waiver wire targets and the fab that I would bid on each and every single one of those in my exclusive weekly waiver wire article. That's going to be in the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. It'll be in the description. It'll be down below in the comments. So if you're rushing to waivers and you don't know what to bid on each player, where I have each player ranked, I go way deeper than just the top fives. I go maybe 10 deep at each position. It's a really, really thorough waiver wire article I give to the patrons for only $5 now. Make sure you check that out. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the trade targets video. We are back again. For all you guys that know, I took a nice little long weekend this weekend. We are rejuvenated. We are feeling good. We're going to go out here, get after it. As always, I'll see you guys in the next one.
Yup.